Hello and welcome to a bonus Total Soccer Show Quick Take. I am Daryl Grove. I'm joined by Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello.
So here's what happened today. This is Saturday. We were in the studio to watch the Clasico.
We were.
Right?
I'm excited to hear you justify a quick take about a game that happened at like 7:30 this morning. Go ahead.
Well, we were asleep at the time. We watched Clasico. Pretty good game, right? We had to do our instant take. That show is the previous show in our feed if you're looking for it.
We got to do our instant take.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to do our instant take. Then we realised, on the DVR, we've got Man City 1, Chelsea 3.
Yeah.
And from the reports we'd seen, it was a really explosive, really a good game with a lot of good goals. So we thought we'll go back watch that. We'll do a second bonus show. Mm-hmm. And then, because again, I know this is the third time we've said it, we're both a little under the weather. Mm-hmm. Then maybe we can take Monday off because we'll have produced content and still fulfilled our promise to our listeners.
I feel like you feel incredibly guilty about being ill. It's like the fifth time you've justified, like, I'm sick, I promise. You should probably present a doctor's note. That's what you should do. Tweet a note from your doctor saying that you're sick, Daryl. Then we'll all believe you.
Well, Jim Broshaw was tweeting us about having tickly throats.
Yeah, he was.
Well, shall we get to Man
Sure.
City, Chelsea? I mean, it was a really, really good game, so that's why we wanted to talk about it.
I think it was a really good game and a really dramatic game as well. Obviously,
yeah.
when you have two late red cards and then a complete second half comeback,
right,
that tends to point towards drama and excitement.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the game, well, first of all, if you haven't seen the game, go watch it.
Yeah.
But the story is Chelsea conceded at the end of the first half a Gary Cahill own goal. So it's 1-0 to Man City at half-time. In the second half, this is at the Etihad, right? Chelsea come back with 3 goals in the 60th, the 70th and the 90th, 3-1. Then there's a big melee at the end of the game where Sergio Aguero gets sent off for his tackle on David Luiz, and Fernandinho is also sent off in the aftermath.
Yep.
So it's gone from Man City having what looks like a really good result against a really strong Chelsea team to an utter collapse in the second half.
And it's Pep Guardiola's first home loss at Man City in any competition.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and also worth noting that there's a lot more to talk about with that scrum and the resulting red cards, but maybe we'll get to that. Not necessarily in chronological order, but we should probably talk about the game itself first.
Soccer first, fist fights later.
Yeah. Sure, sounds good.
Should we talk about why Man City...
Weirdly not some of the players' policy, but yes.
Shall we talk about why Man City actually looked very strong in the first half and why they went into half-time 1-0 up?
Yeah.
Can we start with tactics? What was their tactical approach? What was Guardiola's tactical approach?
I mean, they both seem to have a relatively similar formation. It seemed like Chelsea came out in more of a 3-4-3.
The classic now Conte 3-4-3.
That dropped into like the 3-4-2-1, and that's exactly what City did, the 3-4-3 that was more like a 3-4-2-1.
But I would say Man City's was more aggressive, even if you just look at the personnel, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you still had the dedication, generally speaking, to playing out of the back, playing to feet, playing quick passes.
Yeah.
But you also had a lot of movement. And what I mean by that is not necessarily, obviously soccer always has movement, but it was a lot of left to right, moving the ball, trying to kind of like probe Chelsea and get them to just pull out a little bit here and there, get a little bit too stretched, and really capitalize on the individual moments. And that's how that first goal happens is, for the most part, Chelsea did a good job with that defensive shape on that goal, but the one time that Alonso steps to try to win the ball, and he's maybe a couple yards too late, that frees up Jesus Navas, who's now wide open, who can take a touch and try to cross, but instead it's failed to be cleared by John Stones, and in it goes.
But Gary Cahill.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That would be weird otherwise.
You get England's centre-back partners.
Yeah, confused. They're all the same.
It's Gary Cahill who really should have just cleared it with his left foot, instead tries the outside of his right foot and ends up basically turning and volleying it past Thibaut Courtois.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Really, I think, it's one of those when he has enough time to think about it, but not really enough time to act the way he wants to when he's thought about it. Because he definitely is trying to block it with his dominant foot, his right foot, and then maybe should have just, like, kind of caveman brain, swung at it with his left foot and put it out of bounds. Because even with the right foot, I think you pointed this out while we were watching the game, there's no guarantee that you're going to put it anywhere you want. It could be flicked on to the far post, could be flicked into the goal, could be go right back to Jesus Navas, but now you're on the ground. So there's lots of different things that could have happened there, none of them particularly positive for Chelsea.
And I want to think about how Guardiola set this up, I think, is it kind of mirrored Chelsea's formation, right? You could call Man City's formation a 3-4-3, but whereas in the Chelsea 3-4-3, you've got Alonso as like left back, left winger, and Moses as a hard-working, essentially right wing back. Man City, I feel like, just doubled up on wingers. So they end up, you've got Navas on the right, and I think Sane on the left, right? So those are very attacking players who have no real defensive mindset at all, really, right? They're all about getting forward. And then ahead of them, you've got De Bruyne and David Silva, and then you've got Sergio Aguero. So it's almost like they said, all right, we're going to not isolate, but like overload on the wings, and we're going to work Alonso to the bone.
Yeah.
And that's what they did for this goal. They managed to drag him in, pull him out. That's how Navas gets all that space.
And if you're looking at this just from like a stats standpoint, you'd see this as like, oh, Chelsea were unlucky to go in 1-0 down off an own goal. But the reality is City, I mean, easily, I think that, Pep Guardiola was asked about this in the post-match comments and said we need to be stronger in the box because they could have been up 3 or 4 at halftime. They really did get consistent chances, and I think that's an example of Chelsea, I mean, obviously playing really well and obviously getting the result, but in that first half, being a little bit lucky that there were some misses here and there. I mean, obviously in the second half, there's the De Bruyne miss from 3 yards out where he hits the crossbar.
Yeah.
But even before that, there was like Aguero finds himself in space and that shot is blocked. I forget who else had a chance that was blocked off. And then even you could say there's a penalty shout in there that isn't given. Not even the David Luiz one on Sergio Aguero, but there's the Conte one. I forget who he kind of steps on as he's coming through.
Yes.
That's in the box. That could have been a penalty. David Luiz does step across, give a little bit of a shoulder to Sergio Aguero. I think we weren't sold on that one so much. I know the NBC Sports guys were, that should have been a booking, in which case it probably is a red card.
Right, yes, it would have been denial goal scoring opportunity. Right. Yeah. But, okay, even though Man City did look threatening, had a lot of creativity going forward, managed to make chances from the wings, is what we saw. Chelsea did have 2 or 3 really dangerous counterattacks. And I think just because those moments are so short, you still got the feeling that Man City were in control in the first half, but you still got Eden Hazard, who almost was able to shoot into an empty net if John Stones hadn't stepped in there. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
A lot of bursting behind, and I feel like that threat was sort of promised in the first half and delivered in the second half.
Absolutely.
Because Chelsea scored their goals more or less on 3 counterattacks.
It was the type of game...
Increasingly aggressive counterattacks.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think because their counterparts were being increasingly aggressive.
Yeah.
But it was the type of game where we watched this, as you said, after it had happened. So we knew when the goals were. And it was one of those where, they're going to score in this minute. And how are they going to pull this off? Because, in the, as you said, the 70th minute, they're going to score. And it's 69-35, and City are possessing. And in Chelsea's defensive third, and then all of a sudden, 5 seconds later, goal for Chelsea.
So let's break this down, okay? This equalising goal is the one, it's Fabregas, plays a lofted ball into the box for Diego Costa, who takes it on the very upper quadrant of his chest, is what I'm going to say. Right? There's a lot of shouts for handball, but I think it hits more or less his shoulder, which is legal, right? Brings it down, bangs it past Bravo. Yep. So it's 1-1. But this all weirdly starts because Man City don't play out of the back.
Yeah.
This is backward. We're in bizarro world here.
Well, I think Chelsea did do a decent job of forcing City into hitting long balls when I think they didn't want to.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure in the second half, there's a quick 5-second clip of Guardiola on the sidelines, and he's talking to Sané, and I feel like he's pretty clearly saying, play it wide if it's not there, and he does the play it over the top gesture.
Right.
So I think he's figured out that Chelsea are pressing them wide and trying to force them into it. And I think he's kind of saying, if they're forcing us into that, let's play off of it.
So ever since Celtic and Spurs did this to Man City, I think people have wised up and been all right, if Bravo's going to play it out to collar off in the left-back spot, we're just going to go get him.
Right. But here's the problem for City, is that even if they were doing that, I think they didn't know what to do once that long ball was kicked. I think that short pass, play short, build from the back mentality is so ingrained in them that once you kick it long, it becomes a little bit disjointed. So in this situation, Kolarov clears it, Aguero tries to run it down, then tries to run down Courtois, who eventually gets the ball, and then all of a sudden you have this 40-yard gap between your striker, who should be central and would be around midfield, and the rest of your team, which is why you're then allowed to do 2 passes, and suddenly Cesc Fabregas is right at midfield and is wide open.
And that's why the season Chelsea won the league is, remember, Fabregas, they were able to build around Fabregas, and he was pinging balls like this from midfield behind defences pretty much all season long. Actually, for the first 2/3 of the season, last third they just defended for their lives, right? But this is what happened, right? Fabregas has space. Gundogan is slow. I want to say slow to step to him, but it's mostly just the whole team is still back because they were back before that ball was cleared, right?
Yeah.
So he has time, picks his head up, lofts that pass over, and Costa gets the better of Otamendi, and not for the final time.
But even the Gundogan one, we have joked about the fact that Barcelona, for example, when they play that high pressure, they press that lineup, their entire team is within 10 to 15 yards of each other.
Yeah.
City have done that at times this season as well. It's what I think Guardiola prefers his teams do. In this situation, you're right, Gundogan is late to step, but even then,
the whole team
they're still spread. I mean, there's still a good 30 yards between Gundogan and that back four. And so I think because of that, they haven't stepped aggressively, then they're not on their marks, so then Fabregas has that time. And I think that does go back to, as you said, that long ball. Once they've hit it, they're sort of not quite sure what to do after that. Or at least it takes them an extra couple seconds to be like, oh, right, this is what we're doing. Right. And in those couple seconds, Chelsea are able to score.
And not the last time either, because they score twice more. So in the 70th minute, it's who eventually scores. It's Willian eventually scores. This is like an increased pace counter-attack, right?
Yeah.
This is the ball. I think it's Gundogan, right? Gets down the left for Man City, crosses the ball. It's
dribbles through Chelsea's defense. Essentially,
he
beats
really
like
nice
three
move.
Chelsea players.
And I think there's either not enough people for him to aim at in the box, or it's a failed pass to David Silva. I'm not sure which it is, but either way, it's very lucky on Chelsea's part, right? Because Cahill fluffs it again. Then I believe Fabregas fluffs it and it bumbles its way out to Eden Hazard. He's like, all right, enough of this ball bouncing off people. I'm going to show you how soccer is played. Brings it down, plays it into the feet of Diego Costa. Costa's able to turn, plays it through to Willian, who's already he was running before this even started. He's through on goal, 1-on-1 with Bravo. Bang! It's in the bottom corner.
Right.
But there were so many defensive mistakes from when the counter-attack
There
starts.
were, but I want to go back to highlight one point you made there, which is that when Fabregas plays that ball to Diego Costa, when it's about 2/3 of the way to Diego Costa, is when Willian starts sprinting. He's already
Hazard, you mean?
Hazard, excuse me. Yeah, he's already on his horse. So at that point, like he has already read the situation, read that if Diego, I'm assuming he calls him Diego, can turn, I'm in on goal, and so he is at full speed. Gael Clichy, meanwhile, who subbed in and is playing on that left-hand side, has caught up to Willian at that point because he's done a good job to cover back. He had been up for that Gundogan attack. He gets back, and right when he's like, okay, good, I'm back in position, and kind of slows down, that's when Willian takes off.
Is that kind of Clichy's fault? Like, it's not his fault that Willian has like a seventh gear, right? But it is his fault that like he's just coming to the game. He's not quite fresh. Maybe he's not quite up to speed.
Well, he is. He should be fresh.
Sorry, what I mean is he's not quite like
alert
to the pace of the game in a way that he thinks, right, if I run fast and get close to my mark, I've got him. Not realising that Willian has this extra like rocket boost that he can take.
I don't think so. I think that's too harsh on him because he's committed all the way forward. Like he is really like 10 yards from the touchline and is there as a good outlet in case Gundogan wants to drop it back and wants to drop it out wide, then try to play it inside. And then when we've talked about this before, the ball is faster than a person is. And so
I learned that in goal, the dream begins.
And especially in this situation, you haven't even seen that.
I have.
Here. You haven't seen the second one. That's right.
Yeah, because I saw the first one.
And that was enough. Film stop. But also, yes, you're correct. But I mean, and especially with this, like the rapid fire pace of this counterattack, that even if Clichy is able to get into position, it's not like he gets goal side of Willian and then Willian takes off and Clichy's like, oh, I lost him. Like he has closed the gap to the point where he's about where I am to you. So it's about like, I don't know, 5-10 feet maybe. 5 feet is what I'd say. That's about where he is, and then Willian goes, and Clichy has to pick his pace back up. But he's not going to be able to pick it back up in the way that would allow him to then close down, get goal side, and make a tackle.
Fair enough. And then Kolarov never has a chance.
No, he does not.
But if we're going to point the blame at one Man City defender, it is absolutely Otamendi.
Correct.
Otamendi, if you see this goal, I'm sure everyone's seen this, as Hazard plays the ball into Costa, Otamendi thinks he can get to that ball first, is 100% wrong, to the point where I was convinced that Costa had done something amazing. Like I thought maybe Costa had hip-checked him, like swiveled and turned him, or maybe just like feinted that he was going one way, then went the other way. Costa just lets the ball run past him and then takes it. And Otamendi just overruns it. It's such a basic, simple mistake that if I do that in Sunday League, I'm embarrassed that I misjudged that.
Yeah, and I think it would be easy to like take this too far and say that's City being overly aggressive and trying to make up for the first half fouls or whatever. I just think it's Otamendi who takes a bad read and thinks he can get there. Maybe thinks he's faster than he is. Maybe thinks it's not going to be as good of a ball as it was from Hazard, but he just misjudges it.
I think there's probably an element of panic stations as well, right? Because there's just suddenly you thought Gundogan was about to square it and maybe you were going to score, and instead you're defending this rapid counter-attack.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to be proactive rather than reactive. So he's trying to like head it off at the pass, win the ball back, and do something with it, but at least not let Chelsea turn and come right at you.
Right.
My guess would be that they've probably been briefed, don't let them counterattack at pace, so they're trying not to do that, but he overcommits, and away they go.
And part of it, I think, is as well, do you remember how Arsenal shut down Diego Costa? Like, this would be a couple of months back, and he was essentially...
Foul and shove and
Mustafi and
foul.
Koscielny, well, either like tackle him hard, get there first, or foul him, right? And I think Otamendi maybe is doing a little bit of that, where he's just like, cut it off before it starts.
Well, yes, but I think the other key part of that, and now that you mentioned that, it was when you had Koscielny and Mustafi. Say this was Arsenal playing that game. What would have happened there is, like, say it was Mustafi who made that, like, attempted to intercept. When Costa turned with the ball, if Mustafi hadn't got it or Koscielny hadn't got it, the other one would have stepped and flattened him, and it would have been a foul.
Yeah,
but that's what they were doing. Right? It was basically like try to limit his contact, and if he gets into a situation, then you foul him, then you hit him hard.
Yeah.
And that's what probably another City defender should have tried to do, to be there as a support, but because I think it was Kolarov had dropped off, maybe because he saw Willian charging, that's why you have that space to play it into. And to be fair, I think Costa takes maybe one touch as he's turning, and his second touch is the ball in for Willian.
Oh, no, it's great play. It's just there isn't like some sneaky moment in there that we thought there would be.
But it's not. But all I mean to say is, like, I'm kind of making it sound like there was time for a defender to close him. There really wasn't. It's like takes a touch and plays it.
Yeah.
Even in that gap of time, it's not like a defender could have closed 5 yards and shut him down. That's all I'm saying.
So the Arsenal buddy system works. The Man City beardy system, where Otamendi tries to get there first, does not work.
Not so much. No,
does not work. And it works even less on the third goal, which is the most counter-attacking goal of the three.
Yeah, I mean, it's bing bang boom, and then it's into Eden Hazard. But it's basically, again, City possessing, City trying to make something happen, chasing the game late. And who is it who gets the tackle?
Gets the tackle.
Yeah, gets the quick little poke tackle, and then it's a pass, and then a long ball, and then it's
Alonso.
In
the end, it's the left back / left mid Alonso who plays a ball, I don't know, basically through multiple Man City players over the back, and they're all pushed up. Right, this is the thing; they're all pushed up. I know it looks like Kolarov is in a foot race with Eden Hazard, but I think Kolarov is only in the picture because he's trying to come across to cover.
I think so.
Yeah,
but I think the biggest thing to take away from this is that Chelsea have clearly been instructed and drilled to the point where as soon as that turnover occurs, Hazard is ready and Hazard is going. And it just seems like that is
same with Willian, right? So essentially the wide attacking midfielders of the front three who aren't Costa are drilled to run fast, run beyond.
Yeah. I mean, but that's it's an awareness and it's an ability to recognize the developing situation that I think clearly is representative of the work that Conte, Antonio Conte, not N'Golo Conte, who did have a decent game. That's the work that they've done. That as soon as that ball's on, it's recognized, it's played, and then you get 3 goals out of it.
One complaint I've seen from, I don't know if it's from Man City fans or from neutrals, is that Claudio Bravo did less well than someone like, say, Joe Hart would have.
Yeah.
On, I think, the second goal especially. Yeah. Because he kind of just stands flat-footed as Willian bangs it past him into the bottom left.
And I've seen some people even go so far as to say, like, I wasn't a fan of Joe Hart, but I think Joe Hart saves that. I don't know if that's the case, but I will say that, I mean, it's essentially maybe a couple inches, maybe a foot to the right of Bravo's right foot. And then it goes into the far post. And he doesn't really make any play on it. He comes out and does that kind of stutter step, but his legs are apart. He doesn't dive. He doesn't drop down.
Does Willian just take him by surprise by shooting earlier than he thought?
Well, I will say the commentators thought that he was going to square to Diego Costa, so maybe he was kind of cheating just in case. And
credit to Diego Costa that he had advanced far enough up the field after playing that ball to be on the end of it.
But I think even so, you still probably want to get some sort of foot on that one. And I think this was probably a good example of where, like, City fans can feel a little bit aggrieved that their goalkeeper was brought in for his foot skills, if not his goalkeeping ability.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But I think the larger thing would be that City fans feel aggrieved by the perceived lack of calls from the referee. Was it Anthony Taylor?
Anthony Taylor, yeah.
And I think they're justified to some extent. Yeah, which one? Taylor? Yeah. Hurtful. I think they're justified to some extent. What do you think?
You think they're justified? I don't know. I think so. We looked at the Luiz one, right? David Luiz, where he sort of gives a little nudge to Aguero. I still think Luiz is just stepping into his space, maybe blocking that path a little bit, but he doesn't. Aguero essentially makes more of that than he should have, right? I think Aguero could have hit into David Luiz's shoulder and carried on. And I think because he dived, I think that's why he doesn't get that call.
I think there is definitely contact there, and the announcers were saying,
in the first half, right?
Yeah, he had his hand in his pocket, like as though he was going to bring out a card.
I really am for Aguero for diving.
I'm inclined to think it was Aguero. I think he was going to give Aguero a card, and then either the fourth official or one of the linesmen said, no, there was contact there, but it wasn't a foul, and that's why there was no card. I don't know if I believe that.
Top pocket or back pocket?
I don't know. That would be a big question.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with you, but I will say that there is contact there, and it is Luiz who adjusts his run, and it is sort of, if you look at it from the behind the goal up high angle, it's very clear that the touch that Aguero has taken, he's in on goal if there isn't that contact.
Yeah.
Because upon first viewing, it looks as though David Luiz is just kind of like marking the space. He's going to be able to make that interception regardless. But I think Aguero is beyond him, and I don't think that Courtois is coming out to get that ball.
So why do you think Man City fans or players are kind of justified in their frustrations?
So there's that one that's a little bit questionable, and then I would say there's the penalty shout that I think probably should have been given in the first half. That N'Golo Conte treads.
Refresh my memory.
It was N'Golo Conte treading on, I cannot remember who it was. It might have been David Silva, but he does kind of. he comes in recklessly from behind. And it's not like a bad foul, but he definitely makes leg-to-leg contact, knocks the player over who has the ball in the box. That's probably going to be a penalty.
All right, but that's one penalty call that you don't get. That's kind of normal, right? That happens in games.
And so the other reason why I think, this is strange to say, but like, I think I understand why they're angry.
I've just remembered Guardiola doing the sarcastic finally when he gets a call towards the end of the second half.
There were like 2 questionable handballs that I don't think were handballs, but they did hit the player's hand, but it was a lot of like sliding in David Luiz and then it hits his like trailing arm, but I forget who it was. But the one I was going to say though is that 3 different times there were relatively bad fouls from a Chelsea player on a Man City player who stayed down. In each of those situations, Tony Taylor, we're going to abbreviate it to Tony, allowed play to continue. And I think in 2 of those 3, it led to a shot on goal or a very good opportunity.
Didn't he play advantage, though? Is that why?
And then in one point, he went back and gave N'Golo Conte a yellow card for the challenge. But I think it's like in that moment of the players on the ground and you're just letting play continue, like you're not going to do anything to police this. It's the correct decision, but you understand why there's that frustration, even if it's a little bit unfair or misguided.
To me, it's kind of the reason this game was so exciting and back and forth, right? It's because he played a lot of advantage. He let things go.
Fair, fair. What he didn't let go was the that final late challenge from Sergio Aguero on David Luiz.
So obviously Sergio Aguero is massively frustrated, right? He's probably a little aggrieved at the couple of things that didn't go his way throughout the game. He accelerates down that wing. I think it's Azpilicueta who runs with him the whole way, even though I know Azpilicueta's not as fast as Aguero, but just tries really hard to at least be within touching distance.
Yeah.
David Luiz is able to come across. I think because Azpilicueta at least forces Aguero to push it too far ahead of him. Luiz comes across, gets the tackle in, essentially clears the ball into touch. The 3-1 up in the 90-something minute. So that's a perfectly good thing to do.
Yep.
Aguero leaves the ground. His left foot, I believe, takes Luiz on the knee, takes him on the ankle, and then his right foot comes through the back as well. It's horrible.
I don't understand how he does this because he leaves the ground, as you said. And
you're almost impressed by the savageness of it.
No, I'm impressed by like the karate-ness of it because he really does. It's studs. It's bottom of the boot to Luiz's knee, and then the right leg comes like around, and it's basically a scissor challenge. But even before the scissors are complete, it's this weird, it's the stamp on the knee, and then it really is like he pulls his left foot away and then stamps on like his shin, ankle, foot, sort of. Like he gets a double stamp in while continuing in the same motion. It's impressive, but also horrific.
You can triple stamp a double stamp.
Exactly. Well done, Daryl. And I mean, really, probably could have gotten 3 different red cards. Like he could have gotten a red card for any one of those challenges. And since he's already had a red card this season, a direct red this season, will probably get a 4-game suspension, if not more.
And I'd say he deserves it because this was it's one of the worst tackles I've seen.
Yeah, Ryan Bailey, who we do the Goalmouth podcast with, I think was on Twitter saying, I hope it's a lengthy ban. I don't think he has any particular allegiance to either of these teams.
No, actually, I don't know who he supports.
He might be a Chelsea fan. I could be wrong. But, I mean, it was deliberate, and I would say it was with intent to injure. And you go back to that first half challenge where maybe he's frustrated by that. And, weirdly enough, there is precedent. Sergio Aguero has gotten a red card for stamping on David Luiz before.
Really?
Yes. There is like side-by-side footage of him just stamping on David Luiz's like lower abdomen chest. So
was Luiz playing for Chelsea?
No. It was PSG? Oh yes, yeah, it was when David Luiz was with Chelsea and Sergio Aguero was with Man City, but it was when Man City's jerseys looked remarkably different. So I think I mean, I'm not saying that factors into it, but I think it was an intent to injure, and it was a malicious challenge, and I think you have to consider that if you're the FA when making your decision, or whoever the rules panel, or whoever it is.
And that's why there is this massive bust up afterwards. There's so much going on here. It ends with Fernandinho red card. It ends with Cesc Fabregas falling over the advertising boards. There's lots of other little bit of pushing and pulling and all kinds going on. The one thing I was sort of impressed, but also felt weird about was how the TV, and it's not NBC Sports' fault because there's a global feed, right, for the Premier League. They really treated this as, this is almost like entertainment. Let's break it down. There were so many replays of what happened with each little fist fight and everything that, I mean, we wanted to see it, right, because we wanted to know what happened. And it's how we sort of now know who did what and who's to blame and what
that's,
happened.
I mean, that's why they showed it,
But it's odd, right? Because I remember a time when they used to like not go zooming in on that and focus and try and figure it out.
Are you sure? Are you thinking of like Pitch Invaders? Because I feel like that's what they do with Pitch Invaders.
Yeah, I suppose.
But
so.
I feel like they tend to show the violent altercations. But that may
I'm
be
just
also
living in like a utopian dream world where that doesn't happen.
But I think specifically what I'm remembering is the the poke gate when Mourinho poked
Villanova,
and that was like shown from 8 million different angles, but that might have been beIN at the time, or I'm not sure who had that.
Well, that would have been Spanish cameras, right?
Yeah,
for the global
very
feed.
true. Yeah, it's a good point. And in this situation, I mean, it takes a little bit of doing, but you can kind of start to figure out what happened, which is basically everybody's mad at everybody except for N'Golo Kante, who just stands there calmly.
If you watch this, N'Golo Kante got perfect positioning and very calm, much like he plays the game. He sort of stands with his hands on his hips, just looking at everybody like, "What are you people doing?"
And so this is a topical reference. I'm going Blues Brothers on this one. You know the final car chase in Blues Brothers?
Yeah, through the mall and all that.
And then I think that's the middle car chase.
Oh,
the final car chase is the one where every cop car just keeps ramming into all the other cop cars, and there's a giant. Like, imagine that, but if there was a 5-second gap in between each car hitting every other car, and that's what this was, because like somebody would run into somebody, and things would be like, oh, okay, and then somebody else would come running in, and it just kept growing from there, to the extent that Fernandinho gets a red card. He wasn't even involved in the initial challenge, but he gets a red card for, I guess, violent conduct towards Cesc Fabregas.
Yes.
And upon first viewing, we were impressed, right? Because Cesc Fabregas looks this very steady, very, I'm trying to think what Marcus Aurelius was. Stoic. Very stoic, like, reaction of, like, I'm not engaging in this. This is like, he's hitting me, I'm looking away, I'm not doing anything. And then there's two little moments from Cesc Fabregas that you realize are super, super crafty, shady. What would you call it? Sneaky?
Well, definitely So what's the second moment? Is it when he goes over the advertising
Yes.
podium? Oh, so you're convinced that he maybe...
You can watch him look behind himself as he goes backwards, and he like looks and then walks backwards and looks some more and then falls over the advertisement.
I'm not sure it's as obvious as that. I feel like he looks because he's falling.
No, he's
slow motion,
he's still walking, and then he falls over. He takes 2 steps, and then he goes down. That's my opinion.
He was also pushed as well, so he's got momentum going backwards.
I think he makes more of it than he needs to, because the referee is always going to see a player toppling over the advertisements than he is just a player being shoved backwards.
I guess it does work because Fernandinho gets a red card. But the more important thing is the reason he's going backwards in the first place, the reason Fernandinho is so angry is on a slow-mo replay you can catch, as they come face-to-face, Cesc Fabregas slaps him.
It's not even as they come face to face. It's basically like maybe they already have, but Fernandinho's starting to walk away. Like, it's not like they're in each other's face and he does it.
Yeah.
Like, he does it in such a sneaky way that Fernandinho is kind of looking away, and then he slaps him really fast, and that's always going to provoke this, like, what? Why'd you just do that?
It's a
now I'm really angry.
Open palm side of the face.
Right? And then he goes immediately into, like, I'm just a victim here. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just being calm.
Why
are you so mad? Yeah. It's like when you scream at somebody, and then they scream back, and then you go super calm, and you're like, what? Why are you angry, man? Like, what are you? It was that equivalent of just like, no, you hit me, though. And I bet he did get a yellow card, I think, for all of that kind of scrum behavior. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe something happens. That said, if he got a yellow card, then I don't know if they can do anything about it. I'm not sure where the rules are on that at this point.
We'll find out in the next couple of days.
We definitely will.
I think you can reverse with video evidence. Yeah. I don't know. There's that whole thing of like if the referee takes action, then it's sort of you can't overturn the referee's decision.
Yeah.
Oh, Cesc might get away with this.
And I want to say this.
You sneaky person.
The other one that I think merits attention or discussion in this one. So, you know, Spider-Man has the spider sense?
Yeah.
I think Diego Costa has Costa sense. Because he's just like, I can instigate. And as Fernandinho is in the tunnel and kind of... He's very angry, I think, because he's been hit in the face. And then he reacts. To be fair, that does not justify his reaction. He deserves a red card for being an idiot and putting his hands to Fabregas' throat, doing the shoving. And then Costa comes over and clearly has words with him. And you can just tell that it was Diego Costa, like, we're up 3-1, we've won this game. I'm going to turn that knife just a little bit. Here's a little salt on that wound. You're welcome. And just instigates a little bit more so that Fernandinho, who's in the tunnel, comes back out to have more words. And probably... I'm not saying this was intentional, but might get an even longer ban than he would have because he refused to leave the field in a timely manner.
Diego Costa.
Yeah. He's a crafty one.
He's also a member of a team that won 3-1 and is top of the English Premier League.
This is true.
That's what's happening right now. Chelsea are top of the Premier League. Once again, we're impressed with Antonio Conte.
Yeah?
I think, I don't know if I've referred to this on the show, but that Manhattan Project 343 that he wouldn't unveil until it was 100% ready, when he'd split the atom and figured out how it all works. This is the thing that could go all the way to the end of the season, could make Chelsea champions. I am scared to say this, but we've started picking holes in what Man City are doing and what doesn't work, and maybe Claudio Bravo was a wrong choice. Maybe they're like overcommitted to playing it at the back to the point where when they play it long, it causes trouble for them. Like, I'm always scared because Guardiola keeps winning the league wherever he goes, but I think there's a chance that this is where he maybe needs to rethink some things.
Yeah, and he might, and he'll probably retool and change it around a little bit and get rid of some people in the offseason. But in the meantime, I think they'll be just fine. I think they'll still...
Just fine as in they'll win the Premier League?
No.
Just fine as in they'll challenge for the Premier League?
I think they'll challenge. I think it's going to be a somewhat open race. I'm not going to say fairly open. I'm going to say somewhat open. Because it does seem like Chelsea have got some stuff figured out. Yep. That said, it's not even 2017 yet, unfortunately.
That's true. That's true. One man I want to talk about. We haven't seen the game. We have seen the result. Tottenham beat Swansea City, Bob Bradley, Swansea City, 5-0.
They have. I want to say one tiny little thing before we move on to that. I just want to say the other really impressive thing about Antonio Conte, which we've talked about in the past, is that he's doing this without any of his guys. That whether or not it was his decision or somebody else saying we're not buying them, he didn't bring anybody from Juventus with him who are familiar, who can help everybody transition into a 3-4-3. There's no Chiellini, Bonucci, Gigi Buffon, obviously. So I think it's all the more impressive that he's doing this just by getting everybody to buy into his system.
Yeah.
People who maybe aren't
Alonso. Alonso is the only guy that because he was playing in Fiorentina, he would have been like, we need this guy.
Maybe
he's going to work.
A little bit of familiarity there. It's that Northern Italy familiarity. But I would say one group maybe not buying into their coach's philosophy so much would be Swansea.
See, we haven't seen the game, right?
No.
We haven't seen Tottenham 5, Swansea City 0. We saw obviously the 5-4 win over Crystal Palace last week. I just almost want to get it out there just so people, I want American fans to be prepared for seeing this result because it's not good. It's not good.
The only thing I've heard about this game so far, aside from everybody saying Bob Bradley has to go, that's mostly Swansea fans, I heard a quick little interview with him where basically I guess Swansea had this big plan and then I think a call went against them. I don't know if it was like Tottenham got a penalty and it was incorrectly given. The majority decision seems to have been that it was a bad call by the referee, and that's what sent them on this spiral.
Yeah.
That said, you're going to get
more afterwards.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like that said, you're going to get bad calls, you're going to get setbacks. Just ask Man City. It's how you deal with them, and I would say losing 5-0 is not dealing with them.
True. Well, I guess we'll get a better look at this 5-0 defeat.
Yeah, but we can still say two things. Number one, and this is a question I asked you, is that it's become abundantly clear that the sale of Ashley Williams has been a huge problem for Swansea. And it's an identifiable weakness that we don't have, we being Swansea, don't have like reliable center backs. And I would say this isn't a situation when
we have Yuri Amat.
Yeah, but it's like it's not a situation when you're a coach who likes to play two forwards and you really only have one. So then you have to adjust your formation. Like I don't know how you do.
You have to have at least two centre backs.
Exactly. It's not like you can be like, you know what? No centre backs, more outside backs. Like I really don't know what he could be doing. What do you think? Like, are there more drills he could be doing? Could he just be really working with them on an individual basis? Or is this just a lack of talent is really inhibiting his ability to stay there and make things happen?
Again, it's hard to say without seeing this game, right? But based on the Crystal Palace game, where, again, they won, right? First American manager who won the Premier League ever. They conceded 4 goals.
Yep.
He's even tried putting defensive midfielders in front. Like Leroy Fair has been, battling in front. He's had Gylfi Sigurdsson deep. Jay Fulton played that sort of holding midfield role and dropped into a back three sometimes. I'm not sure how many men you can stack in front of two unreliable centre-backs to make it work.
Right.
But part of it's coaching. Maybe he needs to work with centre-backs on the training field.
That could be. And I know everybody...
Or go shopping.
Yes, that's what I would say. And I know everyone is calling for his head, calling for him to be sacked. He may well be. I think that would be a bad decision, and that's not... I really think, and I hope, that's not just me saying that as an American who wants Bob Bradley to succeed. It's me saying that as a pundit, I guess is what we call ourselves. I don't know. All right, fair enough. Who is aware that this is a guy who was brought in mid-season after the guy who was there before him, who was not even given a full year, was sacked. And I think you can't necessarily ask him to deal with a weakened squad and make it function perfectly, especially if it's the two center backs that are the major problem. So I think Swansea would be wise to give him January, bring in a couple center backs and see what they can do. I don't know if that's what he'll get, because there's always the argument of if you don't believe in the manager, why give him money to spend?
Right.
So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I would hope that Swansea would give him a little bit more time.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Because you also don't want to be the club that's had 3 managers in one season.
Yeah, then people start talking about you.
They sure do.
One final thing I want to let people know about. The US Under-17s beat Turkey 5-1, continue to be impressive. They will play Brazil in the final game of the Nike International Friendlies, I believe Sunday night. And it'll be broadcast live on YouTube and on the Facebook page of US Soccer. So if you want to see the next generation of US talent in action against Brazil with a chance of being the champion of the Nike International Friendly Series, check that out Sunday night.
Absolutely do. Speaking of the US, I do wonder if, and I don't really wonder this, but I would love if Bob Bradley has put a call into Sunil Gulati. It was like, hey, you should look at Big Sam. Just because Big Sam is the relegation specialist and is probably the leading candidate to take Swansea to take over Swansea.
Serena has that job, right?
Oh yeah, I know, but I wonder if before that happened, if Bob Bradley was look at Big Sam, just in case things go south. That's one less name that we'll be gunning for this job, or will be available for this job. Yeah.
All right, Taylor. Final thing to let people know about. TotalSoccerShow.com/shop is where you can now find the 2 T-shirts that we have for sale. We've partnered with Who Are You Designs and the Hello and Welcome Total Soccer Show scarf in partnership with Roughneck Scarves.
For those of you who bought a T-shirt from us before we had this partnership with Who Are You Designs, all shirts have been sent.
Yay.
So if you don't receive a shirt in the next couple of days, please let us know. And that's either a mailing issue or an issue of ability to read stamps.com. It's one or the other.
But if you buy them from TotalSoccerShow.com/shop now, it will be handled by pros. The pros at Who Are You Designs.
I know I just want to tell this to people. If you're a podcaster who's considering starting his own shop, if you're going to start your own Etsy shop and you think to yourself, we can handle fulfillment, what could be hard about that?
We were told, right?
Yeah.
We were told, don't handle your own fulfillment. We were like, we can do it.
Well, it was more like we thought we were. We just didn't think we were going to have significant volume, and we have had a volume, but it's just also...
I've been impressed by how many people have brought T-shirts. I'm really happy about it.
It is also just if you're doing a lot of other stuff, it becomes a difficult thing to track. So I'm happy that we are now partnered with a group of people who can do it on a professional and reliable basis. And apologies to people who've had to wait a period of time. I'm not even going to say how long, but a period of time to get the shirt that they have paid for.
And if you are interested in the scarf, I really love the scarf, the Hello and Welcome scarf. We are also sponsored by Roughneck Scarves, and we have a discount code. So you can get 20% off the Total Soccer Show scarf if you enter the discount code at roughneckscarves.com. Total Soccer Show, all one word, all lowercase, you'll get 20% off.
Thank you to Jonathan Holmgren for tweeting us the photo of his brand spanking new scarf. It looks
good,
lovely.
Right?
And it was Mike Moon Moetta who also emailed us to say that he might not go with a scarf, but he would like a Hello and Welcome doormat.
Yes.
And so maybe that's something we have to look into as well.
We won't
welcome
fulfill
that.
those.
Yeah.
We won't make those and fulfill those
we
ourselves.
will not. Daryl Grove's going to hand stitch your burlap welcome mat.
I will look into that now. It's a really good idea. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, I think you meant stitching it yourself.
Oh, no.
It's like, all right.
Oh, no.
I didn't realize how much free time you had.
All right, so once again, even though we've, for some reason, done 2 shows on a Saturday, we genuinely are a little under the weather. We are taking Monday off to recover. We will be back on Tuesday. The upcoming week, there's a lot going on. We're going to preview MLS Cup. It's Seattle versus Toronto. We're going to have a big preview of that game. We've had a lot of questions about US Soccer technical director and that job and that role. We're going to answer those questions and try and make clear what we think is going to happen there.
So we're going to do that. We're going to have someone else do fulfillment. We're also going to confirm the theories that I've heard, which is that children spread disease. Because I'm just saying, I never got regularly sick until my brother and brothers-in-law started having children. And then all of a sudden, I'm around a 1-year-old for like a half an hour, and I wake up with pneumonia. I don't have pneumonia, but sometimes it feels that way.
All right, Taylor, for the final time today, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
You got there.
Eventually.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back on Tuesday.